Welcome to Chapter 1, Section 2. We're going to be talking about PPE, personal protective equipment. Now, let's get something out of the way. You might say, how does this apply to me? I'm a residential electrician. Well, remember what we've said previously? If you're working in a project that is a commercial project that just happens to have dwelling units in it, then PPE is going to become extremely important to you. In fact, OSHA monitors those projects, and you need to follow the OSHA rules. It's the law. Now, what about if you're a 1 and 2 family traditional electrician that might do residential applications? You don't really get into the large projects. Well, safety is safety. So we model our safety practices after a generally accepted practice. And OSHA would be one of those practices. Of course, the National Electrical Code also gives us guidance on things that are trying to make it safe for us, the workers that work in electrical industry. And again, from people that actually come in contact or come near it. So we're talking about the electrician here. So get used to PPE. Safety courses refer to personal protective equipment with the acronym PPE. And it can include things like flame retardant clothing. It can refer to things like gloves, rubber gloves with leather inners, insulated shoes and boots. Whole body flash suits could be incorporated into your PPE, of course, and they're rated at different calorie levels. Some of the boots, for example, for use with the electrical industry will come with a designation EH on it that lets you know that they're designed for electrical work. Okay, so rubber soles. But there's also face plates, face shields, safety glasses, hard hats, ear protection, obviously, again, the eye protection, and you've got the Nomex clothing and other things like that. Now, what does OSHA say about that? Well, 1910-132F1 says that, quote, the employer shall provide training to each employee who is required by this section to use PPE. If I have to work on something live because it's been determined that I need to because de-energizing something creates a greater risk, and we kind of talked about that in the previous video. If that's what happens, then you need PPE. Now, if I'm going to de-energize something and I have to go into an environment where it is live, maybe I'm racking out some type of gear, then I need PPE in order to do that, to put it in a safe condition. So there's many things that you may need PPE for. Now, a residential electrician, let's think broader than the PPE that we would see for a big project that would be commercial. You still have the issue I've told you about, an arc flash that could cause a piece of metal to get into your eye, so you have safety glasses. If you're doing service calls or maintenance work, you're going to be working in enclosures that might be prior to the 2020, where you could have the 6 disconnect rule all in one single cabinet. That meant that the bus was always live. You couldn't de-energize it. Now, 2020 code, we no longer allow that in a single enclosure. But it was very much a common practice in the 2017 code and earlier. So if you think about that, you're always putting yourself at potential risk. So you want to make sure that you have the PPE and you know how to recognize these various hazards, okay? So you have to, as an employer, make sure that you provide the PPE when necessary for the task at hand to the employee. Okay. As the employee, you need to also make sure that you get the training, especially if you're asked to do something, but you also are going to be the own keepers of your destiny. It means that you don't work on something that you know is a hazard unless you have proper PPE and you've had the training. Okay. Now, working with electrical equipment while wearing rings and other jewelry is not acceptable. And it doesn't matter whether OSHA says it or not, because OSHA states in 1910.333 or 333 C8 that, quote, conductive articles of jewelry and clothing such as watch bands, bracelets, rings, keychains, necklaces, metallized aprons, cloth with conductive thread, or metal headgear may not be worn if they might contact exposed energized parts. However, such articles may be worn if they are rendered non-conductive by a covering, a wrapping, or other insulating means. Now, for example, with me, I don't go in any panel with metal rings on. I hardly wear them anymore. These are a ring that I wear called Groove Life. I like this ring. It's a silicone ring. I've been wearing it for years now. I wear that I certainly wouldn't go in an electrical panel with any metal rings on, any watches on, those type of things. Just don't do it. It's not worth it, because again, you don't realize when you're working in there what this could be touching. And if it touches something and it's in contact with your skin, and the other hand is again bridging that gap we talked about in the previous video where you have a potential between two touch points, current is going to travel through you, and it doesn't take a whole lot to cause a massive amount of problems for you. So just don't do it. So those are little things that you need to think about before you start venturing into something. I wear a necklace, but the necklace always goes in my shirt, and I button my shirt up to make sure that it is not going to just jump out at somebody. At least I hope not. So that's the kind of things, or it's so much easier, I can just take it right off if that's necessary to work in something. So think about those things. PPE is very important. Don't think that this only applies to the large commercial projects that have a residential element to it, as we've talked about, multifamily dwelling complexes. Again, safety is paramount anywhere. So we want to always remember that and practice safe work practices and wear our PPE where necessary. Okay, so we'll see you in the next video. We're going to get into talking about arc flash. So hopefully you got something out of this. We'll see you in the next one.